Meanwhile, Fox News Digital obtaining records showing President Biden quietly securing a $250,000 line of credit against his Delaware Beach home back in December. So the FBI seized private notes and materials during a search of that home this week, as Hunter Biden's attorneys are now claiming that they want a criminal probe of anybody who released and shared Hunter Biden's laptop information. But while saying that, they say that does not mean we are admitting that the laptop was Hunter Biden's, telling Fox that they want a probe of manipulation of a personal data batch. Joining me right now is the Common Sense Society executive editor, Christopher Bedford. Chris, your thoughts on this?
Well, I actually think that makes a little bit of sense, what the lawyers are trying to say there. And I think that because it's possible that this material was hacked from Hunter Biden. There's no denying at all that that's Hunter Biden's emails, that's Hunter Biden in those pictures. This is information that was at one point on a computer owned by Hunter Biden. If that computer was actually the one that ended up at the repair shop, or if that information was shared elsewhere, is a question that's going to be up for investigation here.
Well, look, Christopher, there has been no word whatsoever of the contents of the laptop from these lawyers, which clearly indicate massive influence peddling by the president's son while he was a senator and while he was vice president. We've got emails that indicate that they were accepting money, tens of millions of dollars in money, from officials in China who are tied to the Chinese Communist Party. So that has led all of us to question whether or not this president is compromised, that they have so much on him that he refuses to do anything about the CCP's provocations, from spying on American citizens to stealing intellectual property. In fact, for God's sakes, they canceled the China initiative. And this morning, a blockbuster story. The U.S. is now tracking a Chinese spy balloon, which is floating across the country over the past few days. Fighter jets were prepared to shoot it down, but the Biden administration decided against it. No, they will not shoot it down. Why, Chris? Why are they so soft on China, despite all of China's efforts to undermine the United States?
This is a wild story. Our intelligence services seem to be so busy investigating January 6th and this and that. A massive Chinese spy balloon that's visible by commercial pilots is standing over one of our intercontinental ballistic missile bases in Montana, one of our three. That's something that's a massive oversight. And the military is pushing back and saying, well, hold on, if we shoot it down right now, it could actually endanger people and structures on the ground. But the end result is right ahead of Tony Blinken's trip to China potentially this weekend, as we look incredibly weak. The Chinese are up there collecting evidence. Granted, a lot of that information they probably could get through their satellites, but they're up there floating over one of our military bases. The United States is unwilling to do anything. Biden appears compromised in a number of different ways. His son certainly is. All of that combines to a great show of American weakness, and as we've seen from China's treatment of our diplomats these past 2 years, they know that.
This is just devastating. That is why Senator Tom Cotton is calling on Anthony Blinken to cancel the trip. He says Anthony Blinken should not go to China right now. Do something about the spy balloon. And by the way, why does Biden keep giving all of the business in his so-called climate change agenda to China? All the batteries are made in China. And now the Biden administration has issued a 20-year ban on mining in North Minnesota, the forest area. That's home to some of the largest domestic critical mineral reserves, Chris. So now things like nickel, copper, we can't mine for in Minnesota. We'll have to buy it from China.
Yeah, and this has been a long problem with the green movement. It's essentially a reverse opium trade where the United States buys overpriced green technologies from Chinese manufacturers. That in turn makes our manufacturing more expensive, and that we can no longer compete with the Chinese who undercut our industries in the United States. It's wild to see. Now, they're shutting down another copper mine in the waters around Minnesota. Copper is something that's pretty essential in the high-powered computer chips. Copper is something we use in our ammunition. If the Biden administration is over and over again going to shut down our ability to do mining of precious and important metals, shut down our ability to take energy from the ground, then the end result is going to be, as opposed to a strong America that's self-reliant, one that's reliant on potential adversaries or open adversaries like China.
It's all here in plain sight, and yet the lawyers for Hunter Biden have this last desperate grab, this desperate attempt to change the narrative ahead of Wednesday's hearings on Biden family influence peddling. That is when the House Oversight Committee will begin their hearings. What are you expecting?
I'm expecting a lot of show. I'm expecting a lot of television hits. I'm expecting a lot of Republican voters to nod and say, we knew this all along, of course. But as far as Hunter Biden being held accountable, as far as the big tech organizations that suppressed that story for the Democratic Party being held accountable, or Joe Biden, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, you have to question the Democrats for yelling Russia, Russia, Russia all of those years, while in fact China was the #1 adversary and China was undermining the United States. And here you have Adam Schiff, undermining and basically minimizing the fentanyl crisis yesterday during the border hearing. Chris, we're going to keep a spotlight on all of that. We so appreciate your thoughts on this. Thank you. Christopher Bedford joining us this morning.
Thank you, Maria.